Question 7. Can I just say this question, when you first look at it, looks pretty hideous, but actually it's not as bad as it looks. Okay, oil extracted from the seeds of the crop false flax can be used as fuel. An investigation was carried out into the effect of a plant growth regulator, PBZ, on the photosynthetic pigment content of the leaves and the oil yield from the seeds of false flax. Results are shown in the table. Okay, so we have untreated and treated, average photosynthetic pigment content, and milligrams per gram, but that doesn't matter. Chlorophyll A and B, they're pretty much the same, 3.28 and 3.27. And then you've also got the carotenoids, and that's where you can see a difference, 3.02 going up to 3.98. And then they tell you that this is the average oil yield, that you get 1.7 in the untreated and 2.4 in the treated. Now, just looking at that, before you even look at the rest of what's going on in the question, you can see that because of this increase in the carotenoids, I'm getting an increase in the oil yield. And that's obviously going to be what the question is about. Okay, right, I've had to kind of put things in slightly odd places, so hopefully we can follow this. Absorption spectra from pigments for the treated and untreated were produced and shown in the graph. That's this graph over here. Okay, right. Use values from the graph to describe the difference in absorption spectra of the pigments from treated and untreated plants. So our treated plants are, let me get a better colour for this one, our treated plants are the dotted line. So and we're looking for the difference. Well, there is no difference all the way up here. Nothing is changing until we get to this point. Okay, now at this point, I now have the dotted line is now higher than the solid line. Okay, so if that's higher than the solid line, then this has got a greater absorption of pigment. Okay, so of light. So if we've got, that's all they're looking for. Okay, because it's only one mark. So from 450 nanometers to 600 nanometers, the treated plants have a higher absorbance. Greater, higher, increased, whatever. Okay, have greater absorbance. And that's it. Okay, so as long as you don't get panicked by the fact that that graph looks quite complicated, it's not actually that bad. Okay, right, going back this way, because this is where I had to put this. Use evidence from the table to explain the difference in the absorption spectra. We've already kind of said what that is. The only difference that's in the table in terms of pigments is the carotenoids. The PBZ treated ones have a higher carotenoid ones, and this shouldn't surprise you that we've got an increased section of absorption in the mid-range. Okay, so use evidence to explain the difference. Increased carotenoids creates increased absorption. Okay. State one use that plants make of the light energy absorbed by pigments during photosynthesis. It's worth 1 mark. Now, because really that could be a huge question. Like that could be definitely could be an extended answer. So what we're looking for, you could either say that it excites electrons. I can't spell, excuse me. Excites. So we could have it excites electrons. We could have that the energy is used to pump hydrogen ions in the electron transport chain. We could have that it's used to generate ATP, which is obviously the far end of your electron transport chain. You could have that it's used to split water, or just for photolysis. Yeah, all of that. Any of those are good answers. They're only asking for one. Okay. Suggest why seeds from the plants treated with PBZ yield more oil. Okay, so what we've got is you basically bringing together everything that's on this table and this graph, worth 2 marks. But again, they're not that hard to get. Okay, the first mark is for recognizing that if you've got increased absorption of light, you would get an increased production of carbohydrates. And that's carbohydrates. That's all we're looking for, which could be made in oil. Sorry, that would be your second. Okay, so the greater amount of carotenoids, it means that you've got increased absorption, which means that you have increased energy available for production of carbohydrates, which can then be used to produce oil. And that's your question.